401k advisors want to build a scalable practice, but aren't always sure what to do next. Welcome to Outcomes, the podcast designed to help advisors think, make decisions, and cast a vision to create a business for the future. Here's your host, Ross Marino, financial planner, author, speaker, and CEO of Advisor2X.
Today, we are joined by Coach Joe Lukacs, founder of the Magellan Mastermind and Network Group. He works with independent advisors, RIAs. He's been a coach for 25 plus years. Joe, welcome to the show.
Ross, it's my pleasure to be here.
25 years is a long time coaching. And as soon as I said that, I thought, there's not a lot of coaches that have been around that long. And there's some that may just have smaller practices, but you're continuing to build and to grow, and you're really plugged in. And, I wanted to have you on the show today, not just because you've been a coach for 25 years, because there's a lot of people where they're doing similar things today than they did 5, 10, 20 years ago. But we're in this land of disruption right now. And all of our routines, all of our relationships have been changed so much. And when you look at advisors, and I know you probably see this, we get a whole spectrum of reactions, right? Some of them are just freezing up. They're not sure what to do. Other ones are attacking. And, are you noticing a big spectrum, or are you seeing maybe groups? What do you notice right now?
I really think there are three buckets of advisors. I think there's bucket A, the advisor who has a very flexible mindset. They see things for where they are. They go ahead and deploy. Their mindset's good. Nobody likes what's going on, but you find a way to create a different game, and you plow ahead. I think the second bucket is, I want to move forward. I don't know how. And then the third bucket is, I don't know what to do. I don't think I can do anything. Therefore, I'm just going to stay in my survival mode and just kind of deal with things. And that's a scary bucket to me as far as the industry is concerned.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to try to group them in the kind of the flight, fight, freeze, or I'm not sure what to do. I'll wait and see, and really try to understand where they're at. And this is the reason I wanted you on this podcast and on this video is I know that you're a coach and you work with advisors, but I followed you, I've listened and watched your videos, and you understand that the battle to build a business, it's up here. It starts in the brain, and it's about mindset. Help me understand the difference between the mindset, or how these advisors view what's going on in the current situation with business.
Great question. So I think first thing we need to do is let's break down mindset, right? Because that's a big term. Well, what is mindset, right? And we're not going to take all the elements for time here today, but let's just talk about the one that's probably most important in this current environment, which is what you believe. So if an advisor gets up in the morning and they believe that there's a way to continue to grow their business, they're going to be focused on a different set of actions. If an advisor gets up and they believe they cannot grow their business because, I can't meet with people personally, I can't shake their hand, I can't look them in the eye, I can't pat them on the back. So if an advisor gets up that way and says, I can't because, then why bother taking any action? Like you're going to shut down. You'll go in survival mode. So I think the first thing about mindset is, what do you believe, right? Because if you believe there's a way to move forward, now it's not going to be the way you had planned to initially, right? Nobody came look, I do a lot of business planning for my clients. We've done it for 20 some odd years. When I did all the planning for all my clients, my big conference last November, trust me, I did not get up on stage and say, okay, hey, first quarter COVID's going to hit. And so here, plan around it, right? No. So what happens is that, when you get up in the morning and you're hit with some external adversity comes in two flavors, right? External and internal. External stuff we don't control. So when external adversity shows up, if you don't sit there and say, okay, what does this mean to me and how do I go forward, right? Versus, oh my gosh, look what's happening. I call it being a victim, right? Or going into victor mode. So if an advisor, and this is where the bifurcation of the mindset happens, right? X happens. So there's no stasis. You just don't stay still when your mindset. Either going to pivot into a different conversation with yourself and say, okay, what does this mean to me? What are my options? How do I move forward? Or, oh my gosh, look what's going on. We can't do business. Our office is closed. We can't do our seminars, whatever. And you're here. But there's this point of emphasis, this inflection point right here where you make a conscious choice. Either I'm going to ask myself a different set of questions to get a different outcome, or I'm going to go into the narrative, I can't do anything, right? That's important.
Yeah, and let me jump in. That's great, because I geek out on questions. And I believe that we need to question storm more than we brainstorm. And you just served that up to me, so I have to throw it back to you. They ask themselves a different set of questions. Walk me through, as an advisor, the questions I should be asking myself right now as I'm trying to make decisions on what do I do now and what am I going to do next.
Question number one, is it possible for you to grow your business in the current environment? Yes or no? First question, right? Because if the answer is no, we're done. No more conversation. We don't need to move on. You're gonna just be in survival mode. Hope you ride it out, right? Now I didn't say it was going to be easy or simple. I said, is it possible, right? Because that's the first thing. So master our own communication mindset largely is about mastering your internal dialogue with you, having that meeting of with you, right, with yourself. So I think number one is we've got to have that. We've got to make sure that we ask ourselves a different set of questions. That's question one. Okay, if the answer is yes, it's possible. Question number two, what do I need to do different? And now we get into the change question. Change equals uncomfortableness. And so how an advisor moves, the pace of change, the pace of, if you will, evolution. How much uncomfortableness are you willing to endure? What new skills, like Zoom's a great example. How many advisors were uncomfortable doing any type of video whatsoever? Period, right? I don't want to do it.
Yeah,
So now we're in a
let me
situation.
jump in on that because that is, you hit a key word that I've written down multiple times over the last few months. And now that you've said it, it actually dawns on me that was good to write down because it made sense. And it's about different. And I think the challenge that I have as an advisor, that we all have, is that when there's times like this or when we have external pressures, we just think I have to buckle down, I have to do better. Right. I just
Hmm.
have to stay on top of my clients. I have to be more available. I have to make sure I'm there for them and I'm prompting and I'm asking questions. And I've just got to do more of what I'm doing and I've got to do better. But when you're in this type of disruption out there, it's not just carpe diem, let's seize the day. The advisors who know what they're doing right now, it's carpe crisis. They're looking at this as the golden opportunity. And I think that's the key that separates them. And that's what I'm hearing from the thought leaders and the advisors out there that are really visionaries. They're talking about doing things different. And once again, if you're going to throw that up, I got to follow up. So if it's different, you started with Zoom. Let's talk about what they're doing different or maybe what they modify. Give me some insight into what you're seeing.
I think the first thing is how do you start your day? I mean, when human beings are in a crisis, we have a quest for information, knowledge, and we want more knowledge. That's kind of in our DNA. The problem with that is then we're going to reach for our phone, right? We're going to reach for this, and then we're going to start consuming whatever the news is, CNBC. I don't care your flavor; it doesn't matter, and that is going to put us in a morning spiral. So I think the first thing you've got to do, so we talk about rituals. So the first ritual is you have to lock down the first hour of your day. The news will wait. It will be there. Nothing in 60 minutes is not going to matter in the grand scheme of things. But you've got to condition yourself to say, I got to take care of me and have my meeting first here. Then I'll go deal with the information, right? Because I got to have this first, right? So that's the first pattern we need to change, right? We need to make sure that our morning game is even at a higher level than it was, quote unquote, pre-COVID, right? We got to make sure we do that. Because if we're doing that, then we're going to behave differently. We're going to ask ourselves different questions because we're going to control the narrative going on versus reaching for the phone, reaching for our email, and then we're in total reactionary mode. And it's like, I use the term, it's like eating raw sugar for breakfast. I don't recommend that for elite athletes. I would not recommend a news diet for elite advisors first thing in the morning.
Yeah, and I definitely noticed that with the crisis, I'm real protective of my mornings. I have a long routine. I'll do a show on it later on, but I'm up at maybe 4 a.m. on average, and I've got a few hours there where it is my time, and it's structured. I have goals. I have things that I do,
Hmm.
but man, it just sucks me in. That big B for Bloomberg, the app, it calls to me, Joe. It calls to me in the morning,
Yep.
and
Yep.
as soon as you said the news isn't going to change in an hour, I thought, yeah, he's right about that. He's not,
Yeah.
but I've watched myself get sucked in, and you notice a difference. Your thought process, you shift into that reaction mode. And how can I really problem solve, ask questions, be creative in a calm state when I'm going straight to the news to find out that we're spiking again, the numbers are increasing, these companies are filing bankruptcy. If that is my input right off the bat, how is that going to affect my output of what I'm going to think and how I'm going to act throughout the day?
I mean, it's going to put you in a negative state. Number one, it's going to put you in more survival mode. Number two, and to solve your problem, number three, delete the app. That's what I recommend to clients. I mean, like, hey, if I got a client's like, oh, the social media is driving me crazy, I go, well, how are you consuming it? Well, it's on my phone. What else is going on? Well, I have alerts set up. Okay, dummy, here's what we're going to do. Delete it all. Like, you have to go find it now. Like, you have to, it's not going to just be served to you like a buffet. Now you got to go hunt and get it yourself. And I've had several clients who've done that. And I get emails back and message back, life change, like, it's overstated, but life change. Like, I feel so much better. I don't have my Facebook app anymore. I don't have the CNBC app anymore. I don't have this on my phone. I have to go find it now, and I'm more judicious with finding it because I got to go put the energy into doing it, right? So I think there's some very simple hacks that when we talk about it out loud, like, oh, that's a no-brainer, right? But we're so conditioned to want to have the information at our fingertips that I think we get kind of caught up in it too much.
Yeah, and I think that's good. And I'll tell you, and I think that's great because I did some of that and then I backtrack so I can call myself out here because I apparently need to call myself out. And that is the app's only on my iPad. It's not on my phone. And I
Okay,
put
well, it's
my
better.
right, I
Better.
put my email icons on the farthest page possible on the iPad and on the phone. And go figure, it takes 5 swipes to get to the email. I stop checking email. I mean, am I the
Yeah.
laziest guy in the world? Is that
Human,
really what prevents me? Right. But with
human,
the
human
app,
nature, man. Human nature.
it is, and it's a great hack. But I noticed with the app on there, I was looking at it a lot, so I just leave the iPad at home now. So that's a
Hmm.
bonus. I don't bring that to work anymore, but it was still in my mornings. And just recently, I've stopped clicking on it as much. And I think that's probably going to be my number one takeaway is the news is not going to change in an hour. And
Nope.
really, if you think about it, you're either searching, and I want you to comment on this. Either I'm anxious and I'm looking for proof that I have reason to be anxious, or it's mood management. I'm hoping something changed and I want some good news because I wake up and it's a crisis. So I'm either
Yeah.
fulfilling my anxiety or I'm trying to manage my mood or something like that. Is that what's going
Mhm.
on?
I think in the simplest term, yes, but I think that where we want to be is in the third line or the third lane, which is I want to prepare myself for my day. So both of those examples that you gave me, while they will serve some need, is not going to put you in the mindset to go ahead and be great today inside of a crisis. So we always want to run a morning protocol, and we're not going to get into all the elements here, but I teach my clients, an 8-step morning ritual protocol. We call them Magellan Morning 8, from meditation to 5 minutes of exercise to gratitude exercise to reviewing their goals, their game plan, all those elements. It's about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how long you want to spend on a couple of the other matters. And it's just like an elite athlete. Michael Jordan never showed up on the court and just said, okay, he went from the car to basketball shoes, and let's go play. He warmed up. He meditated. He got angry. He did whatever he needed to do to put himself in the right framework. Advisors need to take that same kind of approach. They just can't show up every day. You could show up in, look, 10-year bull market. Our industry has created a lot of bad habits. Standards dropped. You didn't have to be a great advisor. The market did a lot for you. Everybody looked good on paper. So now COVID hits. Now you're being exposed. No longer the same game. Wholly different game. And you got to be willing to say, you know what? I can't operate as I did the last 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 10 years ago. It's different. And this is, in my mind, way more intense than 08, 09, because 08, 09, you had refuge. You go on vacation, go to a restaurant, do things. This is just, it permeates every part of our world, right? So the standard, and that's why you have these 3 buckets of advisors, and you got to declare which one you're going to be in, and then say, okay, if I'm in this the third one, not the good one, am I okay with being here, or do I really want to get out? Because sometimes, you're familiar with the situation, it becomes your friend. And now I have a narrative of why I'm not successful, right? Just like the guy will have narrative of my broker dealer stinks or my manager stinks or compliance stinks or whatever, right? Well, now I got this to shield me, where the advisor who sees it for what it is, the facts, right? See the facts and look in the mirror and say, okay, who do I need to become to elevate in the new environment? It's another question. Who do I need to become in order to elevate in a new environment? Because if you can't be the same human being, we're always evolving anyway. So why not just take control of that evolution and say, what do I need to do? You know what? I gotta learn to master Zoom. I gotta learn to be comfortable on video, right? I've got to learn to, I have this mindset, I got to be able to shake hands and do all this other stuff. But you know what? That could be gone for several years. Who knows? Um, I better find a way to influence people without being in the same room as them, right? You start asking different questions. You'll take a different path of learning. You'll get a different outcome. That's really the game today.
Okay, and that's yeah, and that's spot on. And I think the advisors taking advantage of this moment are trying to think through that. And those are the great questions. I don't have to answer how long will this last because I don't have that answer.
Right.
However, even if it only lasts for a year or a year and a half, if
Mhm.
adding Zoom or other practices, would I regret that 18 months from now? Right. The answer is no way. So I think that's good. But, we're advisors, and I want to shift gears with you because this is one of the values of you having so many decades of working here is, advisors, we love to do what we do. Maybe we love being planners. Maybe we love doing enrollment meetings for 401ks. There's usually some aspect of this industry that drew us in. We'd love it regardless of what side you're on, and you think it's absolutely fantastic. However, over the years, you've been maybe a little slow to catch on to certain things, and you get to observe that. You see advisors who, as their practices grow, maybe there's some things that they're a little slow to grasp onto, they didn't understand. So let's go back and take a look at advisors that have grown over the years. What are some of the things that you have to help them see and understand how their business evolves and how they need to approach things? Not, again, not doing better, but what do they have to do differently now that their practice is growing?
Great question. So I think, years ago, the game was, and let's just talk about first impressions, very simple, right? So years ago, first impression, right, before the internet, right, if you will, it was about the office, what building you're in. Then it was about what clothes you wore, things like that. So today's game, very different. It's all about your website. Your website and your LinkedIn profile are now first impressions. It's your storefront, right? And years ago, advisors would give maybe some. I need a website, so let's throw something up, right? And there it is, not dynamic. And I advise all my clients today. So look, every 6 months we're going to really look at your website, and I want it to be bleeding edge, cutting edge. I don't care who your provider is; doesn't matter. This is your storefront. This is what if a client refers you to their friend, they're going to Google search you, guaranteed, and they're going to find two things: your website and your LinkedIn profile, and they will form an opinion based upon those two. Because right now, there's no Yelp review for advisors. There's no like third party. We're not doing that. So they're going to draw conclusions off. I think it's the first thing. The second element, which has changed really in the last couple of years, advisors have got to understand that they're in their own personal brand. That it's really about you, the advisor. It's not, years ago, Ross, you remember this. It was really about if you're good with people, if you're a good communicator, a good salesperson, right? That would carry the day. Well, now that's secondary. You've got to understand the brand game. What's my tribe? Why would somebody want to hire me? My value prop. All those things now are actually more important than quote unquote salesmanship
Yeah, and
going forward.
that's hard for me because I'm Ross, I'm an advisor, but now you're telling me I have to think like a brand. I think all my insecurities immediately flared up of who do I think I am, right?
That's right.
Instantly, I'm
Mhm,
not a brand. I'm just a guy. I'm trying to help some people. I help them
mhm,
make decisions. I love
mhm,
what I do. This is great. Been doing it 30 plus years. I want to
mhm.
me. That's not my brand anyway, right? I can't do that. How do I frame my mind, or how do I wrap around that I am a brand and that's how people perceive us and that's how they
Mhm.
view us? How do I do that when I'm thinking it's just me and I'm just trying to help some people make decisions?
I mean, there's really two elements, right? The first element is if I ask you, hey, why should somebody hire you, or why should I hire you? I better have a succinct answer to that, right? Number one. Number two, a lot of advisors don't have a succinct answer. So, well, let's go find it. And in my tribe, we always do what we call Challenge Wednesdays. And so every couple of months we do a challenge where I say, look, I want you to the next 5 conversations you have with your clients. I want 2 questions. Question number one, why they hire you in the first place? Question number two, why they stay with you. And a lot of time we can't see it because we think it's going to be this. And when you just, again, this is not like a survey, it's a conversation with your clients. What you'll find is it's not about the reviews that you do and we like the portfolios and all that jazz. It's we feel like you have our back, that you care about us, right? And so by just asking those questions, and you'll be surprised Ross, how many advisors are afraid to ask. Like they like, oh man, I don't want to bring that up because how about if I don't get the look? If they hated you, they'd be gone. You wouldn't have the opportunity to talk to them. they'd be gone already, right? So let's not worry about that. Let's work on the premise that they're here for a reason. They stay with you. It's all at will, right? So let's just go have those conversations. And what I get back as feedback from our members is it's one of the most powerful experiences. It's scary initially, but
Sure.
it's one of the most powerful. 'Cause all of a sudden now, you're getting all this third party information. You're getting this quasi endorsement, right? It just makes you feel good. It makes you feel grateful, right? From that perspective. So I
Yeah.
think those are two things. Ask the question of yourself, why? And then if you don't have a good answer, go ask.
Yeah, I think the two things you pointed out there is what I need to hear, and I may know it, but I think I still need to hear it. My clients know I care, and they trust me. Is it really that simple? They know I care, I have their best interests at heart, and they trust me. Is that it?
I mean, you think about why does somebody fire an advisor? Lack of communication, lack of relationships. Never, we talk about fees and performance because that's the easy conversation. But the real conversation is they didn't feel connected to me, or I didn't work hard enough to connect with them, right? And that's for a lot of advisors, that's a hard game to play because they lose these relationships and they go, understand, we're doing such a good job, my fees were good. That I said because they weren't connected to you, and you didn't, maybe you tried and you gave it like a half effort and you never really figured out their scenario, and that's what happens, right? So yeah, it is as simple as that, because that's what surveys I've read, you've seen surveys, same surveys I see over decades. Number one reason why somebody leaves an advisor: lack of communication, lack of relationship, period, end of story.
Well, let's shift this to the 401k market because we have listeners that work both sides
Sure.
and some work one or the other. And in the 401k market, you're often going to work with an investment committee. So it's going to be a group of people. You may have
Mm.
one point of contact, but there could be a group. So how do you connect with maybe 3 to 5 people or someone you might only see once a year in an annual plan review? If you don't have that intimate relationship a financial planner may have, how do I do that in a one to many model?
So I think it's about how much energy you want to put behind it. So number one is your investment committee is made up of human beings. Unless they live in a cave somewhere, they're probably on LinkedIn or somewhere. You're gonna find them somewhere. And all I would do is look to build that relationship, whether it's stepping into a conversation or just an email here or there to kind of build, make sure they're getting everything I need. If I'm doing social media, try to get them to engage and follow me so they kind of see what we're doing, a fuller picture. So what you don't want is your investment committee to have little snapshots a couple times a year of you and not see you the rest of the year, right? We want to be always putting our brand in front of them, always showing the value that we're creating, things like that. And and we think a lot of times, I've got guys that play in the case space too, that investment communities are like these monolithic, unemotional creatures, right? They're still human beings. They still have the same insecurities, right? So not that it works in all cases, but again, this is all about getting the odds in your favor. So I would want to be very direct. Maybe not again trying to engage them in a one-on-one type relationship, but I want to have something, that they see me more often than just getting the quarterly performance reports on the K plan and whenever we do our investment committees.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So let's do two more things. Let's go to today, and then we're going to talk about the future, and they're going to connect the dots a little bit. So today, you see the advisors that are taking advantage of this situation. They're doing things differently. Throw out a couple ideas on this is what you see the smartest advisors that you work with. This is what you see them doing, how they're approaching things. What are they doing differently? And it could be little things or big things, but can you name some things that are different right now?
Yeah, number one, I think every advisor needs to be 100% digital or have the opportunity to do that. So be virtual. Even though you may be able to get back in your office and you may not want to get rid of your office, but I'm going to give you two reasons why. So I've always had this premise for over 10 years that an advisor could really build a virtual practice. I never, once technology got to a point, we called the presentation actually Advisor 2020, Advisor 20. Like every 5 years, I would kind of project out a little bit. And I've also often had this premise that you could work virtually without an office, virtual assistants, do everything technology. And lo and behold, we have the grand experience right here, this grand experience that we have. So I think there's two things. Number one, for the advisor. So if I'm 100% virtual, it gives me what we call locational independence. So in other words, if I'm in a place where I don't want to be 12 months a year, I can be where I want to be the rest of the time, right? So if you're in Michigan and it's minus 20 out there and you want to be in Arizona where it's 70 and sunny in January, you'll be able to do that and run your business. Yeah.
Let me jump in because you reminded me of something you said the last time we spoke, and I thought I've got to ask him about that. It's brilliant, and then I forgot to write it down, of course. But when we were talking, you said that this environment, and it's along the same line, creates a geo arbitrage opportunity. And I thought
Hmm.
that is so cool. The word sounds fascinating, but I'm not really sure what he meant, which now makes it intriguing as well. And then as you explained it, you were talking about the virtual practice and how we've just slingshotted into the future where now that's possible. So, uh, talk a little bit about geo arbitrage and what you're seeing going on, because I think that's a concept that we're going to see it even more and more in the future.
Your last part is accurate. We are going to see a lot more of it. So geo arbitrage is just a term where you go ahead and find resources and you use geography as a way to hedge economics. So quick example of that is if I decide because I have the story going on now. I've got a client in New York City. He has not been able to get to his office and since this whole thing started. His lease is up in December. He's paying about $7,000 a month just for the real estate, never mind all the goodie stuff. And his assistant is going to be retiring also. She'll be 65 in the fall. So so he can do a hard reset basically. He says I've been doing Zoom for the last 120 days. My clients seem to be fine. So why should it matter if I'm on Long Island or if I'm in Boca Raton? Right? Zoom is Zoom. And then I said, well, okay, let's step through that a little bit more. Let's say, okay, we get rid of the office, and then we talk about the assistant. I said, let's talk about that person. What we're going to do? Well, we'll find somebody that works virtually. Okay, great. But he was still thinking about finding him in New York, but it's going to be 100 grand, right? So I go, well, why don't we just go to like Omaha or somewhere like that? We'd probably find somebody for half. And if you want to go really crazy, let's go to Canada and get somebody there in the Eastern time zone. And with the dollar to the Canadian dollar right now, it's about a 40% discount. You can find tremendous talent at a discount. And all of a sudden he starts thinking about this. And all of a sudden now you have the whole different set of possibilities. We figured if he were to domicile in Florida, keep his keep his business in New York, do what we just said, he put about an extra 150, $200,000 a year in his pocket from reduced expenses, taxes, and so on. Buys a lot of airplane tickets back and forth if you need to.
Yeah, that's really pretty amazing. Well, I I think that makes a lot of sense, even just without the crisis of leveraging virtual, leveraging Zoom, and I'm moving on my side on the practice to bring in virtual team members because I need
Yes.
to expand my team, but
Mhm.
not everybody's going to be down the street. So I'm fine
Right.
with other cities, right? And everybody is used to Zoom now. So I know because I'm old enough, video killed the radio star.
Yeah.
Now video may kill the face-to-face meeting with advisors, or at least hamper it a little bit.
One
So
of my
what
clients,
do you think?
I don't mean to interrupt you. One of my clients said to all his clients, he's doing Zoom meetings. This is the new face to face. And so his mindset, and he's a very successful guy. So so there's the geo arbitrage part, which is the advisor can work from anywhere, his team can work from anywhere. There's a lot of great possibilities there. But then there's a second piece, and it all depends where you're located. So we all know that there are a lot of studies out there that in certain parts of the United States, when a person retires, they're not going to retire in that spot. They're going to go south, most likely, right? So if I'm running a practice in an area where a certain percentage of my clients are starting to now do this and migrate, right? Now it becomes ubiquitous. I can work anywhere. It doesn't matter. You can Florida, Arizona, you're in Michigan, doesn't really matter. And also, when I'm working virtually, it does two other things for me. Number one, referral wise, I now can open it up, assuming I'm licensed where I need to be licensed. I'm open up nationally now, right? That's a great thing. So if I have a client in South Carolina and they're best friends in California, I can work with it's ubiquitous whether it's Zoom is Zoom. Doesn't matter where I'm located, right? So that becomes very interesting from that perspective. The second thing it does, if you want to step into this, if you decide you want to have a niche, you can have a niche, but make it a national scenario, right? Because now you have enough. It's big enough to go do that, right? So it gives you a lot of possibilities, but you got to see it, right? You got to see it. If you're stuck here in that third bucket, like fear, scarcity, survival, you, this is like such a foreign language to you. You can't get your head around it, right? If you're here. So I think that's part of why you're seeing some advisors really thrive. Some advisors do okay, and other advisors just struggle because the advisor here says, okay, where's the opportunity? Different set of questions, right? Versus how do I stay in business? Two different outcomes.
Two different outcomes. And I'll tell you, for me, the proof's in the pudding. So I was one of the people that didn't do it. And I won't belabor this story, but finally started Zoom, had a couple of referrals, people who were connected to a client, 2 states far away. I'll just give you the short version, within 2 or 3 Zoom meetings, the level of connection and comfort that I had with these people, it's like they had been clients for 10 or 20 years. It
Hmm.
was beyond bizarre. I was asking myself questions. I'd like to go through the questions of how long do I feel like I've known these people? How comfortable are they with me? Do I understand them? It was amazing how quickly I connected with them and how quickly they connected with me. So I
Right.
became a true believer to the point where Zoom is now my default. And I told my practice manager, we Zoom. That's what
Yep.
we do. If someone wants
Yep.
audio, they can request that. But this is it. And now for a podcast, like podcast is great, but we're Zooming. And
Hmm.
if nobody ever watches the Zoom, that's okay. But I need to see you. You need to see me. It is
Right.
a texting is different than an email. An email is different than a phone call. A phone call is different than Zoom. I don't know how much of a difference physical face to face is from Zoom. All those other areas, though, from phone call to Zoom, that is a huge jump. And yes, it's more work. And okay, so I've been a slacker. I just didn't want to do all the work. But man, I'm a true believer now. So let's do the final pivot. And I think you've started to answer this. So maybe we can wrap up some of this. And that's the 5 year question. So let's look out 5 years in the future. You look at the advisors who are making decisions, making things happen. Who do you think dominates in the future? And who do you think 5 years from now advisors are going to look around and say, man, I missed it. I'm getting left behind here. What do you think that looks like 5 years from now?
I think one word will be digital and virtual. So maybe it's 2 words. Digital in the marketing sense. I was talking to several of we had a little mastermind meeting on Zoom because only way we can do things. And I made a comment. I said, look, digital marketing is where seminars were in 1990. So if we can go back in 1990 and say, hey, I've got an idea. Let's go buy people dinner and we can get a deck together. And nobody's doing this, by the way. So let's get out there now, right, and do this.
Wow.
And that's what I'm having my tribe do. So I think number one is understand that digital marketing and personal branding is the game going forward. It doesn't mean that referrals are still not going to be there or centers of influence are still not going to be there. I mean, those games are still going to be there. But the advisor who understands the digital space and creates that personal brand, they're going to dominate. They're going to dominate on the growth side, right? And then on the other side, virtualization. Getting talent in low cost states. A lot of people, are kind of getting tired of the city life, the expenses, stuff like that. So I think you're going to have a lot of migration over time. People are going to look for different places to live and kind of do their thing. So you want to be sourcing talent nationally, if not internationally, if possible. So that's going to be the other part of the game. And I also think that retainer based financial planning is the future. I think there'll be a retainer-based model for that. AUM fees, of course, will still be there. Insurances as you see fit. That is more of a coaching model than an advisor model. I really believe that financial coaching and consulting, the real progressive advisors are going to be really. I've got clients now who are signing up, people and businesses for that retainer-based model, and we're getting yeses. So it's no longer to me. Once I can validate a concept, it's no longer a concept. Now the question is, how do we lean into it? And I think 5 years from now, that's where we're going to be.
Yeah, and I think you're great. And on the 401k side, financial wellness is all the rage. We're calling this podcast Outcomes because it's way beyond just saving for retirement. We're moving beyond that. The retainer model will come in, the hourly fee for service. I'm sure there's all types of business models that are being created, and it's going to go in different places we may not know. So, um, Joe, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much. Let me ask you a quick follow-up question, which is, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you if they want to connect with you?
Just go to my personal brand website, coachjoe.guru, CoachJoe.guru, like it sounds.
I love it. And here I am thinking, I'm not a brand yet. I love Coach Joe because I keep referring to you as Coach Joe because that's your brand. So let me just remind myself and call myself out. You need a brand because Coach Joe, that tells me exactly who you are. I love it. It's great. I didn't for a second think that was a little strange or cheesy or anything. That's exactly what you do. And I loved it. It's so clear. So I'll have to work on my own brand. I think that's fantastic. Thanks so much again for being on the show. And for everybody listening out there, remember, answers matter most when we ask the right questions.
Thank you for listening to Outcomes. Subscribe now to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Advisor 2X. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service providers with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.